Space Coconut.
Okay, today let's talk about the new killer meta and how the people who are saltiest are the same people who have run the same survivor meta perks for years. Before I get into this one, be sure to sub to the channel if you're new and hit the bell if you don't want to miss any future videos. I stream on Twitch every Saturday, so swing by if you ever want to discuss anything you see in my videos. Links to everything are in the description. So, how about those sad, salty survivor mains, huh? I just found this wonderful thread. The current brain-dead killer meta. Yawn. Ruin and Undying and Tinkerer. Slap this on a killer, particularly a high mobile one, and you got yourself the most boosted player you will ever see. These players don't know what pressure is to save their life. You can feed their build and try to cleanse totems to get rid of their perks, or you can just get a gen high progressed and lead them away. Go back to it when they leave you, because they will, and bam, the player is exposed as the bot they are. The fact this is a build to verse almost every game is ridiculous. The caliber of players' skill level in DBD is utter garbage. This build proves it to be that way. And of course, we have the survivors with enough self-awareness to know they're being hypocritical to the saltiest degree to post something like insert counter argument about DS and Unbreakable, possibly with dead hard BT adrenaline, and then say killers finally have a chance, and then assume that every survivor is running this build. Also, don't forget to complain about Swift. I absolutely love that the meta has shifted slightly, because this is going to show us so much about the priorities of the devs, depending on when or even if they respond to this shift in the meta by adjusting Undying. It's an undeniable fact that Undying makes Ruin several degrees better than it used to be by giving it new life if it gets cleansed and offering the chance to protect totems with the aura reveal. Add Tinkerer to the mix to chase off survivors working on a progressed gen to regress it, and you have a very strong perk combination that is very difficult to deal with. While gen speeds themselves aren't exactly the problem that causes the gen rush, yeah, I know that doesn't make any sense, but trust me. This hex combination, combined with effective pressure by the killer driving survivors away from generators, almost stops the gen rush completely. If a killer can't drive survivors away from generators, then they won't be getting much use out of Ruin in the first place. So while effective to some degree on all killers, it's most effective on killers that can travel quickly throughout the map. Survivors have a hard choice when this build is used. Focus on a gen and get it done, or abandon gens until hexes are cleansed. Either way, the survivors are risking their entire health states to accomplish one of those tasks. Now, I'm not completely heartless. I do understand that it can be extremely difficult to adapt to a change in the meta. After all, I know how difficult it can be to play differently in order to compensate for a new tactic my opponents might be using. It's an excruciating ordeal of contemplation to process this new tactic and come up with a counter to it. It's almost impossible to actually implement a counter and play in a completely different way in order to deal with an opponent's new tactic. Some of you are laughing, but I'm serious. Forcing other players to have to adapt and play differently is a cruel thing to do, and almost impossible to deal with. It's completely different than the decisive strike unbreakable combo that killer players have completely defeated. That combination completely has counterplay and is very easy to deal with. If you're about to get hit with decisive, just leave them on the ground. If they have unbreakable, just pick them up and hook them. It's simple. But asking poor, helpless survivors to cleanse dull totems so Ruin doesn't respawn, or cleansing the live totems themselves so they get disabled, is way too much to ask. Everyone knows that there are survivors incapable of such elaborate and complicated counters to an overly powerful and destructive perk combo. In case you couldn't tell, I'm enjoying this very much. Everyone recognized the power of Undying and Ruin early on, and I'm not surprised that survivors are complaining about the shift in the meta without putting more effort in to do totems. I don't like Decisive Strike, and I really only think a reduction in the time that it's available to use would be fine. Maybe down to 55 or even 50 seconds. But if you tunnel a survivor and take it out early, you can play the rest of the match relatively easy. Unbreakable is fine because you're gambling that the killer is going to leave you on the ground, and it's only a one-time use. Maybe it comes in clutch, and maybe you never get to use it. It sounds like Totems, doesn't it? Survivors can completely remove these totems and have a 50% chance of taking out Undying first, which completely breaks the combo. Let's not forget that this can still happen within the first 30 seconds of a match, forcing the killer to play with 3 perks until Ruin is broken, and then they're running with 2 perks for the rest of the match. The killer is not guaranteed a chance to get any use out of these perks. But if you're watching this, you're smart enough to know all of this already. You know survivors aren't the helpless turds that they think they are. You know that they don't need their hands held in the dark terror of the fog. And that's why we have a very interesting situation right now. Both roles have a powerful perk combination that has become meta. Decisive Strike and Unbreakable for survivors, and Undying, Ruin, and Tinkerer for killers. I want to believe that the devs will leave these perk combinations alone and instead choose to improve the many other bad perks that exist on both sides in order to lead to a healthy game state where many perk builds will become viable in one way or another, leading to a meta where players will have no idea what perks the opposing side will be running, leading to the very opposite of a stale gaming experience. One where players know even before they turn on the game what perks they'll be facing in their matches. Even though this is the most ideal result, the possibility exists that the devs will make a poor choice and choose to nerf the perks involved in these combinations instead. It'll be even more telling of their already implied bias against killers if the change happens to involve Undying, but not Decisive Strike. I'm very interested to see what the devs do, because it's going to show us very clearly what their intentions for the game are. I mean, even if they do something soon, maybe it's because the killer side got a powerful combination, but they did nothing as the DS Unbreakable combination gained popularity, which, would really already reveal those intentions. I mean, Object of Obsession is completely fine, but Compound 21 was way too powerful, right? I won't do a video on that, but the TLDR is that survivors can turn on Object when they want. It has unlimited range and can be combined with Soul Survivor for an aura reading capability that is only rivaled by the OG Freddy power when a survivor was asleep. Compound 21, while powerful, and certainly needed a nerf, should be the go-to example of why Object of Obsession should be nerfed in a similar fashion. I really hope the devs leave Undying alone, because it's going to be really fun reading all the forum threads by survivors crying about how they can't cleanse totems. In the end, the Undying Ruin Tinkerer combo is very powerful if survivors are unlucky and cleanse the wrong totems, or don't cleanse totems at all. If the devs choose to nerf Undying in any way without touching Decisive Strike, we can safely say with the utmost certainty that the Balance team is solely in favor of improving the game experience for survivors. What do you think will happen? Is Undying gonna get nerfed? What about Decisive Strike? Or do you think neither perk will be touched and the devs will instead improve weaker perks, making them more appealing to use, creating new and interesting perk combinations, once again shaking up the meta? In case you couldn't tell, I wrote and recorded this before they gave us information on the patch notes. With the change to Pop Goes the Weasel, the meta is going to change. We now have something better than Pop Goes the Weasel, and survivors are going to find themselves in a sea of killers who use Undying and Ruin. The meta has just been shaken up, and I don't think the survivors are going to like it, because Undying and Ruin are way more powerful than Pop Goes the Weasel. Not to mention if this Pop Goes the Weasel change affects a change to Decisive Strike. But I mean, seriously, who knows what the devs are going to do? The mid-chapter patch is tomorrow, if I release this right. So we'll see what the numbers are for these changes that the devs made. It's going to be really interesting seeing what happens next and what actually makes it through the PTB. I guess we'll find out. Until next time, I'll see you in the fog.